This is the end and the beginning of an age. This is something far greater than the French Revolution or the Reformation. Since 1815, Europe has remained relatively peaceful, despite radical changes in borders and ideology. As the 20th century enters its second decade, however, tensions are rising. Nationalism, previously an influence in the formation of Germany and Italy, now finds its way to the Balkans. Politically, the ideology is realized in war, as the Balkan states fight to overthrow the Ottoman yoke and amongst themselves. Socially, it is used as a justification for secret, though ultimately drastic action. Yugoslav nationalists, looking to bring about an Austrian retreat from the Balkans, conspire together how to force such a move. After consideration, a plan to assassinate Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand is put into action. The potential for destabilization in response is considerable. With the Archduke visiting Bosnia in June, the conspirators take a chance on his life. Believing the Serbian government to be behind the conspiracy, Austria declares war on the Balkan nation, inciting conflict with the rest of Europe. Now at war with France and Russia, Germany enacts its plan to dominate them, the Schlieffen Plan. With it, France is expected to fall quickly by invading through Belgium. However, the Western Front quickly devolves into trench warfare. This stalls offensive movements, causing troops who had been slated to move east upon French surrender to be stuck in the west. The lack of manpower against Russia, however, proves insignificant. Eastern Europe, unlike its western portion, is favorable to offense. In the east, both Germany and Russia refrain from building trenches, unlike on the Western Front. This, coupled with Western Russia's wide and nearly flat geography, makes defense on either side costly and difficult to implement. Germany currently on the offensive against Russia, little seems to be able to turn the tide. Perhaps river defenses may do the trick. Hope for such a strategy fades, however, as time becomes ever limited. The continued push of the Central Powers and the granting of independence to Poland inspires minority nationalists in Russia to rebel. To make matters worse, Germany permits Vladimir Lenin passage from Switzerland to Sweden, allowing him to return to Russia after years of exile. Altogether, Russia's stability is disintegrating. Marxists now with firm leadership and allowed by the state to rearm, stage a rebellion. Civil war begins. In the West, the situation is much different. Led by Brazil, Britain, and the US, the Entente is applying pressure by naval invading into northwest Germany, near Bremen. The momentum of the invasion stalls, however, as German troops sprint to defenses and civilians aid their efforts. Eventually, the pressure applied by the Entente is quelled, leaving them with a great loss and no victory to show for it. In addition, the credibility of further naval invasions working out favorably is discredited. All in all, this leaves the Entente and the Central Powers in limbo between Aachen to Basel and the Alps to the Adriatic. Everyone involved wonders whether the stalemate will be broken, and if it will, by whom and how they may do so. Being called, fate decides. In response to the trench warfare of the Western Front, a new technology, the tank, finds its way onto the battlefield. First developed by Britain and used by France, these war machines made for easier traversing of no man's land and opposing trenches. As such, with the Entente first developing the tank, one would think it mainly used to their advantage. However, two issues impede this. France, having lost over a tenth of its population to casualties, is quickly becoming demoralized. The citizenry fear the fall of France as a nation due to the high numbers and protest for peace. Production of tanks is thus limited as workers join in on the protests. This leaves the Entente having to export tanks from the British Isles. Their mobilization is limited. Germany, without similar issues, optimize a model of their own. Tanks are used extensively on their side of the front. With France now split, peace talks begin. The tank is considered the weapon which won the war for Germany and her allies. With the Central Powers victorious, the Entente is in shambles politically. Socialists, upset over lack of reform, security for the people, and the acceptance of harsh peace terms, protest heavily. Their protests stronger than ever before, militias are called to disperse them. Open rebellion is ignited. Once again, fate is called as the mediator of the future. Unable to intervene in the civil wars due to the peace treaties, Germany and Austria simply sit by and watch. For Russia, however, business is booming. Their alliance, the Communist Internationale, expands in reach as it becomes integrated with the governments in Paris, Ravenna, and York. After the completion of the Russian and French civil wars, the two nations cooperate to support the revolutions in Britain and Italy. Though not all of their efforts will prove to have been worthwhile, valuable information is gained through experience. Altogether, Europe has stabilized. Politically, everything is set for the continent's next great battle of ideas.